Oh my God. Like, oh my goodness gracious. What an absolute joke. What an absolute joke. What an absolute joke of a ball game that was. For the Mets to rally back the way that they did with Mark Vientos and his heroics, and for the Mets to lose this game because of a defensive blunder by a man that you could rightfully argue shouldn't have even started today's game over Luis Angel Acuna, yet he does because he's a veteran on the team and he has to play because of course he does. So much to get into in what is our first Wardy rant of the year. How's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and I got a lot to say. I'm beyond pissed off. This was an absolutely frustrating loss, to say the least. One that we're going to deep dive plenty. And this one, everything that you guys need to know, all the key takeaways, and this one from the Mets faltering to the Washington Nationals by a final score of 5-4. And folks, bad fundies started this game and bad fundies ended this game. Left, right, and center. There were so many things going awry from both sides that we saw in this one, everybody. Hold on. I actually sincerely apologize to each and every one of you. I realize that it says Phillies right now when it should be saying Nationals, but we're going to roll with the punches because I was speed running this thing and I'm beyond pissed off by the game outcome. Just give me 1 second, everybody, so I get everything set up here and make sure it's all looking exactly how it's supposed to, because I believe the highlights just had to go cramp up on me because, of course, why wouldn't they? I'm just fed up. I'm so mad. We didn't play the Phillies. I know we didn't play the Phillies. For the million times, because I know you guys are going to spam in the chat in the comments down below, I know we didn't play Philadelphia. I didn't get a chance to update my template in time because I thought I was going to have a little bit more wiggle room before starting this live show, but Jeff McNeil decided not to be able to handle a routine backhand, and that would ultimately be the difference maker in this one. It isn't the only difference maker. Juan Soto couldn't make a catch. That was a difficult catch, but still one that he bobbled that led Dylan Cruz to get to third base here in the 9th inning. Ryan Stank also didn't have his sharpest outing. The Mets offensively had nothing to give against Jake Irvin for the vast majority of this game. So now 2 out of his last 3 starts, Jake Irvin dominates against the Mets that we've seen. And now the Mets lose to the Nationals here 5-4 in a walk-off fashion, everybody. Again, I know we play the Nationals, not the Phillies. Disregard. I'm actually going to pin it in the chat right now. That way I don't have to hear it the entire time throughout the live show because I know we're going to. Tony, thank you so much for the $2 holla. Tony says, Acuna makes that play. Oh my God. Don't even get me started on Juan bunting. Juan Soto had himself multiple hits today. Yet I can't sit here without first thinking about the idea of putting down a bunt to begin an inning. I had some people counter me this on X, and I want to hear from each and every one of you. In what way, shape, or form is it ever valid, regardless on how deep or how shallow the hole is at third base, for Juan Soto to lead off an inning trying to bunt when he's in the 15th percentile in sprint speed? Buddy is never going to be able to comfortably leg that out whatsoever, yet we're just supposed to accept that and think, oh, okay, he's just trying to get on base and do his job. No! Juan Soto's job is to grind out every single at-bat he takes part in because he's Juan Soto. This is what comes with the territory when you're a $765 million man. If you want to kick the money to the curb, sure, he's still Juan Soto. Even before his contract, that would not be justified for him to make that lousy attempt there. You cannot do that in a situation when you're Juan Soto, supposed to grind out every single at-bat. We know he's pressing. We know he's just trying to be consistent, get on base as much as he can. But I also know that we're a month in the season now, and Juan Soto needs to be doing better than what he's currently doing. So no, this is not going to be an entire show to rag on Juan Soto the entire time. But having said that, folks, it is fitting how in the first game back for Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez was fine, but Jeff McNeil played a key factor in the Mets losing this ball game that cannot be understated. Yes, he had some nice routine defensive plays earlier, but again, a routine play, for example, that Luis Angel Acuna makes in his sleep was an ultimate difference maker in this ball game. Then you add in the fact that, okay, the umpire is going to go ahead and completely screw the Mets in this match early. We saw back in the 4th inning, Jesse Winker with a liner they call a triple play when it touched the ground to begin with, folks. It should have never been more than an absolute worst, a double play that would have kept the runner on third with 2 outs. That could have potentially made it at least a 1-run ball game as the Mets were trailing 2-0 at the time, but instead the Mets get absolutely screwed in this. I also apologize if things are a little laggy. We have a lot of things running right now, and my PC PC2 is frustrated by the ball game ending the way that it did in this fashion after Mark Vientos helped the boys rally back the way that they did. Dave, thank you for the donation. Fake triple play, stink they absolutely do. AJ, thank you so much for the $5 holla. AJ says, I will gladly pay for McNeil's ticket to be away from this team. I appreciate the donation. I'm just going to put this in the chat right now for each and every one of you guys. Again, I know we didn't play the Phillies tonight. I'm going to just make that abundantly clear. Oh my God. Smash a like and subscribe on as you chime in, folks. Let's break down this ball game. What an absolute shit show this was. Pardon my French. And you want to know what sucks most? There were, again, still some fun key takeaways from this ball game. And it wasn't just Mark Vientos. It was Tyrone Taylor making a tremendous throw that we saw in this ball game to keep the ball rolling the way that it did. It was some great efforts, even by Brandon Nimmo, who had a really bad fundamental play, a mental error earlier in this ball game, yet was the rally starter for the Mets in their breakout inning, where Mark Vientos ultimately gave the Mets the lead that we saw in the 8th. Also, everybody, I apologize once more if this thing is a little laggy on me. Like I said, unfortunately, because of the fact that we got a lot running right now, that's going to happen. So bear with me a second. I'm not happy. You guys aren't happy. Understandably, justifiably so. Let's break down this ball game for our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show, everybody. And again, we're happy to have you all in here. Dave, thank you so much for the $2 holla. Dave says, if we played Phils, we would have won. I tend to agree. These Washington Nationals are going to be pesky as all hell all year long. And I told you that heading in the season, guys. I said how the Nationals are actually one of my favorite young teams out of the National League. I think that they're going to compete heavily for a wild card spot. Understandably so. And Edwin Diaz, everybody, was not available tonight because of his recent usage. Said that it wasn't because of his leg cramp from Wednesday. And I'm not opposed to Edwin Diaz not coming in this ball game. I was comfortable with Ryan Stank entering this game, and the frustration adds in when Ryan Stank at the end of the day took a factor into this being the ultimate loss. You look at the fundamentals by the Mets in this ball game, it certainly was in their favor. Bad fundies is the exact reason why the Mets even had a chance in this ball game, because of Dylan Cruz laying out the way that he did. Yet Dylan Cruz would go out and still be a difference maker in the right way, the former second-round pick here for the Washington Nationals. Pat, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Mets seem to sleepwalk, bad decisions, and a mistake 1,000%. Thank you so much for the donation, Pat. I appreciate that. Before we get this one going, everybody, a quick shout out to my amazing friends at BetUS that have you covered with all the latest odds, lines, and picks. And as you guys can see right now, Juan Soto's at plus 1,000 for MVP, while Alonso's at plus 2,000. If I'm picking between the two right now, it isn't even a debate. I'm hammering not Juan Soto, but Pete Alonso every day of the week to win NL MVP, because right now Juan Soto, throughout the first month of the season, is looking more like a Joe Schmo than he is anything close to an MVP candidate. And this is not as much on a slight to Soto as it is I just hope he picks it up and gets his fire under his ass, because he's clearly pressing still, looking for his pitches, but I just can't get over the fact that he tried to lay down a bunt. It's never justified to lay down a bunt to begin an inning. I don't care what any baseball fan says. They can say that, oh, that's part of the game of baseball. That might be the case, but it's not part of the game of baseball if you have any situational awareness of yourself and your sprint speed. Juan Soto is Mark Vientos type speed, two of the slowest players in the Mets lineup. Why am I supposed to think that Juan Soto putting a bunt down is at all going to make sense? And honestly, again, plus 1,000 odds, I'm rather taking Pete Alonso every single day of the week. So if you guys want to do that, check out our awesome friends at BetUS that have you covered again with all the latest odds, picks, and lines. Dave, thank you for the donation. Dave says, when do we trade for Finnegan? Give them McNeil. I mean, Kyle Finnegan, funny enough, was available as he was initially cut by the Nationals this past offseason. Then he signed back with them in the end. Finnegan's a solid reliever. We'll talk more about him around the deadline if the Nationals are selling, but I don't think they're going to be selling. I think the Nats will be at least early buyers in the sense that nothing drastic, but they'll be buying. Tinkus with the $2 holla. Thank you so much for that as well. Wild great member talks slower. It's kind of hard to when I have a lot to say and I absolutely let it rip. So I apologize if you can't handle the speed. What I would say, Wild, is if it bothers you, actually go back in the speed. You can actually adjust the speed and the settings of the YouTube live show yourself. That way, if it bothers you a little too much, it'll slow down nice and easy for you. But guys, thank you again, Tingus, for the donation. When is our $800 million man going to do anything? I know, that's what a lot of Mets fans are starting to ask and question. So without further ado, everybody, let's break down this ballgame inning by inning and get into how Jeff McNeil factored into this loss and what went wrong for the Mets, what went right, and what we can hopefully look ahead tomorrow for Game 2 in this series, as the Mets win streak has officially been snapped at their 7 games all at home. Mets are now 6-7 on the road, a below 500 record. That is their big bugaboo to begin the season, and they need to get off to a right foot, because I'm sorry, I'm not settling with a split series against the Washington Nationals. As talented as many of their young core is, I expect this Mets team to go out at minimum win 3 out of 4 games against the Nats in DC, especially with us being in DC. And I really like how the boys usually perform in this ballpark. No reason for them not to go out and show out the way that they have in the past, everybody. But this ball game gets started in the first. It's Jake Irvin, who, if you look at Jake Irvin's splits, he has 2 really bad starts and 2 really good starts against the Mets. And he's had a couple, at least one of those there at home, if not 2. And he had himself another strong one that we saw today. With Kodai Sanga, Kodai doing pretty much what was asked of him, not at all the problem whatsoever, but it really had to do a lot with the fundamentals of this baseball game. Because in the first inning, Francisco Lindor flew out right away that we saw. Soto then gets on to second base somehow because of a botched throwing error there. Would have flipped to first, gets past. Soto is a runner in scoring position right away for Pete Alonso, who has himself a quality at bat. That's the case in the Polar Bear, and he gets on with a walk, setting the stage with 2 on and 2 out for Mark Vientos, who has himself a flyout to end the inning. James Wood gets on with a 1-out single there. James Wood is going to be one of the biggest phenoms to face the Mets out of the National League East going forward. Himself, C.J. Abrams, Dylan Cruz. This young core is beyond exciting, and there's a lot of upside with the Nationals. And this isn't as much about me hating the Nationals as it is I know I'm going to further become a greater hatred when it comes to how I view them because they have a young, exciting core that's on the up and up. They're going to be good, they're going to be pesky, and they're going to definitely play up to this Mets team, especially with Juan Soto on the roster right now. Of course, they have those chips on their shoulders, and they're going to go out and try to do their best to make things happen. But as we continue on, everybody, outside the Juan Soto blunder that we saw, later in the ballgame. We'll get to more on Juan Soto shortly. After the James Wood single, as part of that Juan Soto trade, for those that don't know, Ruiz then would have pop-out ends, and that was important because Keeper Ruiz has finally been getting in a big groove early on this season for the Nationals. He's looking like it's the best baseball that he's played yet as a guy that can hit from both sides of the plate. I'm not sure if he's been doing that consistently still for the Nationals or not, but I know that when they first acquired him from the Dodgers in a trade a couple years ago with Scherzer and Turner, that was a part of the case in landing him. But in the second inning, everybody, we would see Jesse Winker pop out. Alvarez with a strikeout. Alvy's first at-bat returning to this Mets lineup, everybody. What do we see? He strikes out swinging on a slider, clearly down and away, doing his best Javi Baez impression. I'm exaggerating a little bit. It wasn't as loose of a swing as Baez's, but it was a clear down and away slider that he was not touching, and that was his first strikeout, his first at-bat of the year. Jeff McNeil then with a first pitch flyout, very fitting for Jeff. That's something that he commonly does, sadly. And then from there, everybody, in the bottom of the second, we would see Garcia get on with a single. Bell with a double play ball. Nice turn by McNeil there to Lindor, to Alonso, bang, bang, boom, and then Dylan Cruz that we would see with a 2-out double, and that's all. It actually got reverted back to a single after the fact, but initially was able to double because Brandon Nimmo had a mental error and just did not make the throw there to second base in time, was caught completely sleeping. Something that never happens when Nimmo defensively, sadly happened there, and that allows the runner to be in scoring position early for the Nationals, and they would take advantage as the bottom of the order would come through for them. Their number 8 hitter at third base, Antenna, drives in the first run of the ball game, and that gives them a 1-0 lead. That RBI single gets the Nats up early, as then he would be caught trying to steal second base, and that's all where Francisco Alvarez comes into play, everybody. So if anyone's wondering what were the pros and cons of this ball game, one of the pros was certainly Francisco Alvarez's first day. Because not only did he get on base at least once, which was encouraging, but he also threw out a runner at second base, which has been a critique of his in the past, that some of you guys have shared, has been a bugaboo. Among other things, you guys have stated in the past that, Francisco Alvarez can't throw out runners at second the way that Terens can. Well, Alvy did exactly what you needed him to do defensively today, from the game calling with Kodai Sanga to throwing out runners at second base. So you can't fault him for that as much as maybe you want him to some of the naysayers on the Alvarez front in the early goings of his career right now. But Alvarez gets a throw out, and that does it for the third, everybody. In the second, rather. Because in the third inning, we would see Taylor with a flyout, Lindor would have ground out, and mind you, that is right back to Irvin. Makes a nice play, Jake Irvin. Already 2 balls in the first couple innings that go right back to him, but he is okay. Soto then with a 2-out single that we see, and Mark Vientos, everybody, and a quote says, took responsibility for his base running on the Jesse Winker triple play. I should have froze on that play and went back to first base. Shout out to Vientos for trying to take early accountability there, but it's not his fault that the first base umpire forgot how to actually umpire and completely screwed the Mets. And I said earlier in the goings of this ball game, if the Mets lose this ball game by 1 run, we're going to look back to the umpire blunder in the 4th inning and put a lot of blame there, because not only do we have to blame McNeil to a degree defensively, what we saw lack thereof in the 9th inning, but the same can be said with the umpire screwing the Mets when they had 2 on, no out in the fourth that we're about to get into, where they could have at least tried to potentially drive in 1 run, if not more, that inning, because the Mets have been able to hit lately with 2 outs too. It's not like they can't do that even after, say, a double play ball gets put in place. So that was frustrating as is that I can't get over, and hopefully I'll be over it after the Mets get themselves a big win over the next day or so. But in the meantime, as we head to the third, everybody, we would see Taylor with a fly out, Lindor with a ground out back to Irvin that I mentioned. Soto then with a 2-out single gets the Mets' first hit of the day. It's a 110-mile-per-hour single by Juan Soto, ripped to the right side. Alonso then chases a curveball, nasty curveball that he chased on an 0-2. I don't know why Pete was hacking the way that he was there, but he was, and that ended the inning. In the bottom of the third, we would see Mr. Jacob Young get on with a single. Abrams with an RBI triple, and mind you, a lot of this was frustrating today because some of the key contact that the Nationals had in this ballgame was soft contact. It wasn't like they were just roping Kodai Sanga left, right, and center. No, there was some clear bad fundies and just some things going in the Nationals' favor in this one that they benefited from, and they took full advantage of the opportunities given to them for the most part. Because after we would see Abrams rip an RBI triple, and it was a great attempt by Tyrone Taylor that we saw there in the outfield, just couldn't corral it, that naturally allows it to become a 2-0 ball game. Then we would see Nathaniel Lowe strike out on 98-mile-per-hour heat by Kodai Sanga, which looked nice, and then Keibert Ruiz thankfully strikes out on what was a nasty ghost fork there to end the inning. So Kodai limits the damage. We're down by 2, but the game is still well within reach through 3. And as we get to the fourth inning, the Mets are doing more of what they are trying to do all season long. What have the Mets done so well with their offense this season when it's been going right? It's been retaliating right away when they give up runs. I mean right away, whether it's the half inning or a full inning later, more often than not, especially in the Mets' last 7 games where they won them all at home. What was the commonality, folks? The commonality was that they had numerous games, I shouldn't say numerous, they had at least a couple where they were either down by 1 or multiple runs and rallied all the way back within that same inning or so. And the Mets were on par to do exactly that here. They got the momentum early. Brandon Nimmo's trying to make up for his defensive blunder. He rips an opposite field single to begin the inning of the fourth. Mark Vientos gets on with a single right away, and there's 2 on, no out, as Vientos' ball is not corralled properly by C.J. Abrams. So you have a runner in scoring position, no outs here for the Mets and Jesse Winker. And Jesse Winker right away rips a baseball that looked initially like a potential line out, and they rule for whatever reason, because again, the umpires, they care more about themselves than the union. That is what it actually should be in the game of baseball, and that's to review every effing play regardless of what exactly the play is. If you are the efficient, if you are the man at first base, if you're the man behind there as the ump at catcher, if you're the man at second or third, and if you make a costly miscall that costs either the team an inning or close to potential runs, that has to be a mandatory reviewable play. It's nothing short of an absolute joke by Major League Baseball that they rather give the full and utmost protection of their umpires versus, God forbid, a fair share of criticism to further showcase that they're human and they're not perfect. We started this in the spring training with obviously the automated strike zone, and we saw firsthand right on the big board every single game in spring when they would challenge a call, and that way you could see those idiot umpires get called out for the nonsensical calls that they consistently do. Now at first base, let's not forget what happened with the Mets in that Twins series, and I don't wish, obviously, that same first base umpire got drilled an inning later by Tyrone Taylor. That was just bizarre. That was a complete fluke. Those things normally don't happen. I never wish on anybody, but the point is that the Mets have already been screwed to a degree by a first base ump this year, and this was without question the most egregious one yet. How do you call a triple play that upon review in the highlights clearly shows Jesse Winker's ground ball being, yes, you guessed it, an actual ground ball? We see that transpire. Should have at absolute worst been a double play turn by the Nationals, but everyone freezes and they instead get a triple play to end the inning with 2 on and no out. That is absolutely disgusting. It's nothing short of a joke that they can't bother review or do anything along the lines when something like that happens. It is an absolute joke. I cannot get over it. And we have that in the highlights for you guys to see. There is one specific highlight clip beside me that you guys will see as the highlights roll out, showcasing exactly where they missed the call, because the ball is as clear as day hitting the ground before it gets in Lowe's glove. Either way, the Mets had a rally trying to start there in the fourth inning, and bam, instead they go down just like that in triple play. That would be overturned later on in the ball game, as if that matters when the damage has already been done. We would see in the bottom of the fourth, Kodai Senga work a nice clean 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout. In the fifth, Alvarez would rip his first hit of the year, a 109 single right up the middle. Francisco Alvarez had himself a fine day for his first game back in the Mets line. I'm not complaining at all with Alvy. We're happy to have you back. Shout out to you, Francisco. Very happy about that. And Jeff McNeil then with a shallow flyout right after, and Taylor with a flyout, and then Lindor with a strikeout. Does it 1-2-3 from there. Kodai Senga, speaking of 1-2-3, he did have himself a 1-2-3 inning that we saw there, everybody, in the bottom of the fifth. And guys, in case you're wondering, no, it's not the Phillies. I have it pinned in the chat for a reason. I effed up the graphic, but I'm not going to I'm not going to go back in my software to bother to change it now, because we're already 20 minutes in this bad boy, and the boys lost in dramatic fashion. I'm pissed off and not looking forward to breaking down for you guys, but I got to do it anyway. So the show goes on here, doesn't it? Let's see. And also, I'm really frustrated that for whatever reason, my highlights just continue to lag on me throughout the course of the show. Not exactly sure why it's been that egregious, but we continue on. In the fifth inning, everybody, that's it. Nothing happens from either side. We then get to the sixth inning, where Juan Soto attempts to make a bunt, and that's what I critiqued him earlier on. Again, I know Juan Soto's going to get better. I know he's completely pressing right now, and he's playing pretty much a shell of what he's supposed to. No doubt about it. Is there rightful criticism to be had with Soto to a degree? Absolutely. It's really hard not to criticize the guy when he's not providing the production that you're expecting when he's the largest contractor in North American sports history. You know, we can give a pass only for so long before the rightful critics start to come in, beyond just Yankees fans that are upset that their Juan Soto is no longer a New York Yankee. Today, they had every reason to kind of run with the stuff that was happening. I know anything negative when it comes to Juan Soto, they're going to run with all year long, and will continue to. That's just how they're going to be. But outside of that, everybody, Juan Soto, final thing I will say on the bunt attempt, you cannot be Juan Soto and be one of the worst runners on your team and think that because Tena is playing just a little deeper than what you feel he should at third base to warrant a bunt to throw them off. Because here's the thing, even trying to throw off the Nationals with a bunt, you still have Juan Soto's speed. And in case you guys don't know, Juan Soto isn't fast at all. He is notoriously slow. Him and Mark Vientos are some of the slowest batters in this Mets lineup 1 through 9. There is nothing to justify based on just that single statistic alone on being in the 15th percentile out of the 100th percentile out of total players. He's in the bottom 15% in sprint speed. Yet he thought it was a good idea to try to get the party started there as a plate setter with a bunt instead of trying to grind out an at-bat where he either strikes out, pops out, grounds out, or gets on base somehow, some way, shape, or form. That is what frustrates me as a fan. You are here for a reason. You are not here to be that. You are here to grind out every single at-bat, and that's the final thing I will say on that front. Regardless on if you guys agree or disagree there, that's something that I'm not at all going to waver from. I don't care what anyone says on the baseball front, that, oh, this is a part of the game. It doesn't matter because of the context of who the player is, their sprint speed behind them, and what they usually do approaching each at-bat, I think is important context. As Francisco Lindor attempted a bunt once or twice early in this game because he didn't like how deep Tena was playing at third base. The difference is that Francisco Lindor is a guy that's destined to steal 20 to 30 bags a year. Juan Soto won't be doing that because Juan Soto doesn't have the same speed. So let's not compare them as if they're the same thing. Far from it, everybody. But continuing on, Soto attempts that bunt that fails. Alonso grounds out, and then Nimmo lines out, and that does it there for the sixth. In the bottom of the sixth, James Wood gets strikes out actually on a nasty ghost fork by Kodai Sanga. Lowe then with a ground out, and then Keibert Ruiz with a 2-out walk. Then we see Garcia with a 2-out walk, but thankfully a nasty ghost fork on what I believe was Josh Bell, and it was there, ended the inning unscathed. So Kodai Senga, after getting some quick outs there in the sixth inning, got his count worked a bit too high for the comfortability of the Mets. So he only goes 6 innings as his final line today, everybody. And I don't even have my typical final line graphic that I pull up for you guys with just the highlights of him and everything because of just how much the walk-off of the Nationals threw a wrench in all of this. But let me tell you what the final line of Kodai Senga was in the start, because Senga was far from the Mets' problem tonight. He goes 6 innings of 6 hit, 2 earned run, 2 walk, 5 strikeout ball. His ERA is down to 1.26 on the season. Not at all the problem. Kodai Senga is far and away far from the problem for this Mets team. So Senga, thank you so much for your outing today. Not an issue with it whatsoever. When we take a quick look as to what Sanga did with his arsenal today, everybody, we're going to quickly deep dive here the numbers on his pitches with his ghost fork to his four-seam fastball. Just his utilization, I'm curious how he went about his mix today because the forkball was utilized a lot. And out of what we saw, the 7 different pitches that Kodai utilized in this one, the forkball at 34%, the ghost fork, topped at 86, sat 84. The four-seam fastball, topped at 83, sat 95, and that was at 28%. The cutter at 14%, topped at 92, and sat 90. The sinker at 9%, topped at 91, and sat right around 89. The sweeper at 8%, topped at 83, and sat right around 80. The slider at 4%, topped at 85, and sat right around 83. And the curveball that he threw just twice sat right around 70 miles per hour. So that's what you got from Kodai Senga's final line, everybody. And in my personal opinion, I'm going to give Kodai Senga a grade on a scale of 1 to 10. He is going to get a solid 6.5 out of 10 from your guy Wardy today. For him to go a solid 6 innings is one thing. He was very close to going 7 if those back-to-back walks didn't happen. And Kodai continues to be a guy that's more than reliable for this Mets team and this rotation. Very reliable. So much so that he deserves credit. And it's a shame when he gives us a solid start like this, yet we really can't appreciate it too much because the Mets lost in such a sour fashion. We all have that bad taste in our mouth right now, and I know a lot of you Mets fans don't want to even talk about or hear a recap on this game as you just want to sleep this off. I hope they bounce back tomorrow. We got a quick turnaround tomorrow. It's a midday game around 4 o'clock or so. I may not be alive directly after tomorrow's game, everybody. Just a fair warning, as I got multiple personal family birthdays to attend and take part in. So if I'm not live immediately after the game, that is why. But rest assured, especially if it's a good ball game for the boys, I will have coverage for you either immediately after or in some form or fashion. Just don't know the exact time yet, so be on the lookout for it tomorrow, guys. No pregame tomorrow either because it's a 4 o'clock game. I'll probably be dropping a video in the AM barring changes for each and every one of you. But as we continue on now, everybody, Kodai Senga gives the Mets 6 solid innings, and I want to hear from you guys in the chat right now and our replay viewers down below in the comments. How would you grade Kodai Senga's final line today, going 6 innings of 6 hit, 2 earned run ball with 5 strikeouts and a pair of walks? Because as we get to the 7th inning, everybody, Mark Vientos, Jesse Winker, and Francisco Alvarez, what do the 3 have in common? They all go down in order. We would see Brosman come in the bottom of the 7th, and Brazo gets worked right away. He gives up a bloop single that we saw to Dylan Cruz, the former second-round pick, a second overall pick, rather. Tanner then with an opposite field single himself, this time pulled between Lindor and Vientos to the left side. Abrams then with an infield RBI single. So frustrating. Brosman can't make the flip. Now, granted, I knew that Abrams was probably going to be driving in a run regardless here, but that was so frustrating to see. That makes it 3-0 Nationals in 7 innings. And Brosman then gets a huge line out on low as it comes right back to him with a comebacker, makes a quick grab, and that does it there for the inning, but not before we would see them add at least 1 or 2 more. PB9, thank you so much for that too. I appreciate that. But no less, the Mets are down by 3, and they only have, at this point, 9 outs to work with. So what would the Mets do, everybody? Let's see what they would do. And I actually apologize, not 9 outs to work with. They had 6 outs to work with because we just had the 8th and the 9th inning at minimum heading into this one. In the 8th inning, this is where credit is due, because while I can sit here and nitpick Jeff McNeil's defensive blunder at second base that hurt the Mets towards the end of this game, Jeff McNeil also deserves credit for being the beginning of this inning, because McNeil got on with his first hit of the year that we saw, which led off the 8th inning. Tyrone Taylor with a fielder's choice as he would ground out, but they can't turn the double play. But again, McNeil is the one who first started that inning one way or another. And then we see Jake Irvin exit this ball game, and that would be huge, because before that, Jake Irvin absolutely dominated the Mets this entire start. Him and Schwellenbach out of the National League East are going to continue to be a problem. They're 2 young, exciting, dominant right-handers against the Mets. Schwellenbach has far more upside, I think, than Irvin, but Irvin is down to a 3.19 ERA this year, has killed the Mets in 3 of his last 4 starts at Nationals Ballpark. He has torched this Mets team. 7.1 innings of 1 earned run, 1 walk ball, 4 strikeouts on 98 pitches. You have to tip your cap. Jake Irvin pitched really well against the Mets today. And while you can make the argument that they just did not look good from the start of this ballgame, because that's true, you also need to give credit where credit's due when a pitcher goes out and goes 7+ run innings on you. That's exactly what Jake Irvin did, and we have to deal with it. And as we continue on from here, the bullpen coming in would once again be in favor of the Mets, because the Philadelphia Phillies have a cooked bullpen, and the Mets took advantage. The Nationals have a cooked bullpen, and the Mets took advantage, at least at first, because in the 8th inning, we would see Tyrone Taylor with a fielder's choice. So there's 1 on with 1 away. Lindor then, first time batting from the right side of the plate today, pops out for the 2nd out. Juan Soto, with 2 outs, rips a single. And that was important because Juan Soto would continue to get the line going there. And that's where I appreciate Juan Soto, because that was a quality at bat for Juan Soto against a lefty reliever that throws 99, pumping absolute gas at him. And Soto has a flair for the dramatic, especially against lefties. He usually does very well against them, and I love the approach that he has against left-handed pitchers in general. So I was really encouraged to see that. Juan Soto gets on base, and the line continues from there. Then we see Pete Alonso get on with a walk, and what was a quality at bat by him, and the bases are loaded with 2 outs for Mark Vientos, everybody. And you want to know what the Nationals do. They see that Mark Vientos is coming in the ball game, so they naturally pivot to their right-handed closer, and Kyle Finnegan. And Kyle Finnegan, who's a very rock-solid reliever, has been the past number of years for the Nationals. He's been a pest for the Mets many times. We see Mark Vientos best in between the two by ripping himself an opposite field bases clearing triple, all thanks to Dylan Cruz trying to make the diving attempt there in right field. Wasn't for a lack of effort by Dylan Cruz's part. Dives all the way out, but can't make the catch, so everyone's rounding. Mark Vientos is hustling as hard as he possibly can, and the Mets would ultimately find themselves winning this ball game at the time, 4-3 in the 8th inning. After having no runs this entire ball game, and after having what felt like a rally started and then killed quickly by that schmuck of an umpire at first base in the 4th inning, the Mets finally responded, and they further showcased that never say die mentality. Regardless of the fact that Dylan Cruz helped out a little bit with his defensive blunder there in right field, it takes Mark Vientos to still make quality contact with that baseball, and for it to somehow, someway just stay fair inside that first baseline the way that Vientos did, and that was absolutely fantastic, everybody, because Marky V certainly did his job, and we're very grateful and appreciative of that, everybody. But as we continue to break things down from here, folks, Mark Vientos ties the ball, gives them the lead 4-3 that we see, and then Reed Garrett comes in the bottom of the 8th inning, and Reed Garrett thankfully has a scoreless inning, and that's in part because Tyrone Taylor utilizes the cannon and throws out Luis Garcia Jr. at second base, trying to leg a single into a double. Tyrone with the cannon, as always, he throws him out, and that would be absolutely huge. The Nationals won't score in the 8th inning. The only problem is they end up scoring in the 9th. And here's what happened in the 9th inning, everybody. As many of you guys know already, smash that like and subscribe button as your first time in, folks, as we break down the latest in Mets land. A very frustrating loss tonight against the Washington Nationals. Never a good feeling to lose in a dramatic walk-off fashion the way that the boys did tonight, but sadly, that's exactly what happened. And I also apologize for not doing any call-outs here in the chat, everybody. I just want to get this entire game broken down before I answer comments from each and every one of you. So thank you guys again for everyone that donated early, for the likes and subscriptions. We're happy to have you in here. It's sadly doom and gloom when the Mets lose games in this fashion from your guy Wardy, because it's such a gut punch, and I can't hide that. You know, like, even if the boys go out and dominate the next 3 games, that'll be awesome. But this game, until tomorrow's game starts, is going to sadly live rent-free in my head. It is what it is. This was a tough L for the boys to lose in the fashion that they did. But in the 9th inning, everybody, we would see between the Mets and the Nationals, the Mets would go down in order. Francisco Alvarez, Jeff McNeil, and Tyrone Taylor. What do they all have in common? They not only go down 1, 2, 3, but they all ground out in the process, which then leads us to the bottom of the 9th. Ryan Stank comes in, and Ryan Stank's throwing gas early, right? Problem, though, he throws gas to Dylan Cruz, who catches up to him, and Dylan Cruz goes oppo for a ball that would have either went off the wall, if not attemptedly caught there by Juan Soto. Soto initially corrals it, but it pops out of his glove there, try to make the jumping catch right on the wall in right field, and that, of course, is where I'd assume Yankee fans are going to have their field day for the next 24 hours. That's their latest World Series. I'm glad they could get that in and prioritize that more than their own baseball club, but naturally that happens when you're butthurt about losing your guy who's just never going to be your guy again. It is what it is. But in the case of Juan Soto, this is a situation that's frustrating because it really isn't as much at fault for him as it is that was a really tough play to make in right field. Baseball Savant will tell you how tough a play that was to make. On the catch probability was not easy, but knowing that Soto did make contact, you might make the rightful argument he should have made the catch. And I don't disagree with anyone that has the right to say that, because if you're Juan Soto, and if you're hustling your ass down there to make that catch the way that he did, to make that attempt rather, you got to close the glove. And sadly, he just wasn't able to do that. So again, I'm not going to give him as much flack for that, as what bothered me most from Soto today was his bunt attempt personally. I just felt like that was a complete waste of an at-bat that shouldn't have been wasted at the time. But with that being said, the defense, you guys can nitpick it should you wish. That was a very tough play to make, and Dylan Cruz sadly, is one of the fastest men alive. He bolts first, second, and gets to third comfortably. And right away, there is a leadoff runner at third base for the Washington Nationals. And as one would rightfully expect, the Washington Nationals go ahead and take advantage of this because Jose Tena ties the ball game right away with a single. The 7, 8, 9 hitters absolutely torched the Mets in this ball game. Nationals were pesky big time. Then we'd see Jacob Young ground into a force out. So couple outs there, everybody. First out of the inning. And now A.J. Minter comes in to face C.J. Abrams. And C.J. Abrams gets on via a force out. And this would kill the Mets because we needed C.J. Abrams to strike out because he would be the game-winning run in the end. And A.J. Minter, mind you, Abrams was 0 for 4 against A.J. Minter entering today's game. And again, now he's 0 for 5, but because he got on base on the fielder's choice, having another speed demon in the Nationals one, if you guys have done the math. They have C.J. Abrams. They have Dylan Cruz. They have Tena. They have at least 2 other guys that are fast as all hell. Like really, really fast in their line. And I know Young is solid with his speed too. They're a faster team though. They have Young agility. They have a lot of the pieces working for them where they're going to be a fringe playoff team this year out of the National League. We know they are. And the Nationals ultimately won this one in the end because as A.J. Minter's in, he's facing off against, yes, that being in James Wood. And James Wood, the key piece along with C.J. Abrams in the Juan Soto trade, would walk it off for the Nationals as that ball just gets through. What should have been ground out in a flick of a force out to second base is instead completely missed by Jeff McNeil. And Tyrone Taylor was playing so deep because it was James Wood, and it made sense why he was playing deep, but he was playing so damn deep that there was no proper backup there behind McNeil, which gave C.J. Abrams more than enough time to bolt all the way from first to home, and that's exactly what happened. The Mets go on to lose this one in a very dramatic and a gut-punching fashion by a final score of 5-4, and I'm really looking forward to not having to talk about this ball game anymore because that was an absolute terrible one to witness. The Mets were out hit by the Nationals 13-8 in this ball game. The Mets now drop to 18-8 on the season. Still a fantastic record, 10 games above 500. The Nationals are 2 games below 500 at this point in time. But in order for the Mets win streak to be snapped, you want it to be snapped in a respectable fashion. And everything about this game just did not have the respect on it. It started with the umpire screwing this team there that we saw in the 4th inning. Juan Soto's bunt was just a personal frustration of mine. It didn't really cost the Mets here. You could say that his lack of catch in right field late in this ball game cost them more. I won't say you're wrong, but I also know it wasn't for a lack of effort on his end. The same way that Dylan Cruz, it wasn't for a lack of effort on his end either when he tried to make that catch that instead became a bases clearing triple for Vientos. And then Dylan Cruz ultimately is still, again, that Swiss Army knife for this team down the stretch the way that he knows he needs to be for them. He, after giving up that triple, legs a triple himself, and it's like bing, bang, boom, you know, I'm going to one-up you even after my defensive blunder. That's an impressive thing to do that Dylan Cruz was able to exemplify in this ball game. Cruz looked very good against the Mets that we saw in little sample sizes in spring training, and now we're seeing it before our very eyes, the kind of damage that he, James Wood, C.J. Abrams, among other, are going to do in this one. Thanks. Oh, Don Rawl, thanks so much for the kind words. I appreciate that. D-Mac with a $5 haul states the following. McNeil had a key hit starting the comeback rally. I know he later blew it, but why wasn't Acuna in late for defense? And this is a big question that Carlos Mendoza is going to have to answer plenty anytime that Jeff McNeil has a hiccup like this. Because let's be real, everybody. Luis Angel Acuna, if he is at second base, the Mets do not lose that game in the 9th inning. They go to extra innings at minimum, and you go on from there. And one thing that I want to say on McNeil's front is I know he got the rally started in the 8th inning before he was quickly out on a force out there because of fielder's choice with Tyrone getting on. Outside of that, though, McNeil didn't do anything that wasn't like typical McNeil. First pitch flyouts, not grinding out his at-bats the way they should be. Even with the torpedo bat, it's still more of the same. And we know that's going to be the case. And Jeff McNeil cannot have the leash that he has had in years before. He simply can't. And John, this is not as much McNeil hate as it is facts. You may not like what we're about to discuss, but it's a reality of the situation. If you are a factor into the team losing, when the Mets have proper replacements available, nice and chilling on the bench, that are more than likely not going to make that same exact mental error, that's the difference here. And you cannot allow Jeff McNeil to have a leash that's like, okay, you're on payroll, you're here for another couple years on contract-wise, we're going to play you every single day. Jeff McNeil might be an everyday player, but he cannot be getting every single day reps at second base. Luis Angel Acuna should start at minimum half the games of this series at second base, and he should get at least a look late in the ball game at center field, starting maybe in the 7th or 8th inning, and say a game where maybe the Mets have a decently comfortable lead. Like, that's what Carlos Mendoza should have in his mindset. I know how much he was looking forward to having McNeil and Alvarez back in the lineup. I understand that completely. When you look at McNeil and Alvarez in the lineup, especially with Alvarez batting ahead of McNeil's batting 8th, you look at the depth of the lineup, and it's all there. But of course, when you have the deepest lineup on paper so far this year, the Mets offense was nowhere to be shown up until late in this ball game, with the exception of the umpire screwing us there in the 4th inning. So on the topic of McNeil, this isn't as much about like, oh, like, woe is me, I can't stand this guy, as it is a further reality that when you have a Swiss Army knife of a really exciting young piece on your bench that's made a difference pretty much every single game out there, it's really hard to justify not having him in the ball game at all, right? You guys have all seen what I've seen. What I'm talking about is not straight out my ass. It's what you all know and have heard and have witnessed the past 2 to 3 weeks now. Luis Angel Acuna has been fantastic every single time out there, whether it's his defensive upside, whether it's his tremendous base running upside. Acuna does what Soto can never do, and that's by putting a bunt down, a plate set, and start the inning, because that actually makes sense for a guy in the 99th percentile in sprint speed, the fastest guy in baseball, and not 15% when Buddy is never going to be able to leg that out. Never. It isn't going to happen. So let's not act like it's ever going to. So Acuna not only brings that immediate speed threat, he brings that immediate threat defensively. And then you add in the fact that what has Luis Angel Acuna done to this point offensively? He's been a dynamo. He's been fantastic. Buddy is batting closer to 300 than he is 200 right now. And that's all because of every single time that Acuna has been out there, even if he's not hitting the world on fire, he's making a difference one way or the other. And that is what I will leave you with on the front of what the Mets should be doing at second base. You should be riding the hot hand. Acuna has been the hot hand. I know McNeil is back, but McNeil needs to earn his keep. I'm sorry. I'm not one of these fans that wholeheartedly believes that because McNeil has been here all this time and has all this track record, that he deserves to be getting the consistent reps. He needs to earn them to a degree. And an easy way for McNeil to earn them is to just take advantage of the opportunities given to him versus kind of giving him what feels like a plate setter where as soon as he comes back, not a plate setter, I'm sorry, wrong wordplay I'm trying to do here. Instead, Carlos Mendoza lays it all out for him and gives him the easy start right away as soon as he returns. That bothers me. You know, like, was Jeff McNeil a part of the Mets' run so far this season? Was Jeff McNeil a key factor in the Mets winning their past 7 games? I know Luis Angel Acuna certainly played a factor in those games, but McNeil wasn't here. And that isn't his fault for not being here. But at the same time, this is a results-oriented business, as David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza famously state in spring training especially. If that's the case, then ride the effing hot hand. Luis Angel Acuna needs to be in this lineup tomorrow. And if he's not, I'm going to be disgusted. I'm going to call it out on X. I don't care that we're 10 games above 500. And I don't care that we're here in late April. Every single game matters, and you need to play the best players out there on a day-by-day, night-by-night basis. McNeil, I think, is the perfect fit as a true utility option for this Mets team, and I think he's going to bode best in that position throughout the course of the year unless he really does get hot with consistent reps at second base. Because I will say this, everybody. As much as I hope and expect Acuna to get consistent playing time, if he doesn't, I need to see McNeil play well. That's what it comes down to. You have to play well if Acuna isn't going to be in there. And if McNeil does play well, I will gladly support him and say, wow, it's awesome to see him running away with second base the way that he has in the past, showing his worth yet again and actually showcasing his worth so much so that's of even greater impact than Acuna. The problem is that you can't make the argument that McNeil's a better defender than Acuna, with the exception that McNeil is more versatile in the left and center field now. That he 100% has on Acuna. But Acuna even has had center field reps. So to what degree is it actually with center? The only real debate here is the fact that McNeil can comfortably play left and right. Acuna can't really comfortably play those positions, or at least we don't want him to. When you look at the offense, how much better is Jeff McNeil going to be this year than Luis Angel Acuna? Seriously, how much better is he really going to be? That's a question that we don't have an answer to yet. Trial and error will be the results of that, what we see over the next week or two. But this needs to be something that Carlos Mendoza bears in mind. You can't just allow a veteran to come in and go back to his position like nothing's changed, and for him to expect that to be the case on a day-by-day, night-by-night basis, because he hasn't deserved that right. He hasn't played consistently enough the past 2.5 years to warrant that. If he has done that, then I wouldn't be even here to debate with you right now. I'd say how we should trade Luis Angel Acuna and or Brett Beatty, because the Mets clearly have second base figured out. But newsflash, they don't. And what they do have figured out has been the guys who have stepped up, mainly Luis Angel Acuna, and he deserves those reps. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's what I have to say about that. And I will say this too. I am not a fan of having your young kids on the bench when they're performing well, when you face the severe risk of them then getting starts a couple days maybe after not playing and getting out of their groove. That drives me up a wall. That grinds my gears more than most as a fan. You can't put yourself in that position if you're Carlos Mendoza. They already have attempted this over this past homestand where Acuna didn't play for over 48 hours, not because he wasn't playing well, but because they wanted to get Brett Beatty last looks. So they did that, and then Acuna's first game back makes an immediate impact. Rips a single, rips a double, one of the two at least, and then is making fantastic web gems, stealing bags the way that he does. Acuna makes a difference every single time out there, and that's why I'm going to continue to preach everything on his front until we see something change. So in the case of McNeil, I hope he performs. I hope he goes out and dominates for us. Fantastic. But this is stuff you have to have a short leash with. I will not sit here contently as a fan if we go out this series and Acuna only starts one game. That's horseshit. That can't happen. He needs to be in there at least minimum, and that is what I have to say about that. Thank you guys again for all the support. It's been awesome chopping up, breaking down every single game with you guys throughout the course of the 162 here. But I'm going to wrap up the show now because I know that we have a fairly quick turnaround tomorrow. I'm probably going to have a video to drop in the AM for each and every one of you too. So again, thank you guys again so much for watching. I'm not trying to rag on too many players here. I understand completely how I was more hot-headed to begin the live show. That's going to happen when my favorite team gets walked off in what I thought was an absolute joke of a fashion because of a backhanded pick couldn't be had and flicked to second base for the force out. It's going to piss me off. It ain't going to change now, but tomorrow, winning changes everything. So until then, everybody, enjoy the rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. Thank you so much for chiming in the latest WardyNYM postgame show presented by SeatGeek, presented by Mando, presented by BetUS TV, and many more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.